So last night, Nintendo finally released some financial data for their investors, which talks about how the Nintendo Switch has been selling for the last couple of months, as well as some of their new games that have come out and how they've been doing, and just talking a little bit about what they're forecasting for the future moving forward for their fiscal year. And the information that has come out from all of this is actually really interesting because the Nintendo Switch is finally starting to not really do as well as Nintendo would hope for and not really meeting their expectations. And because of that, a lot of people are starting to speculate what could be happening with Nintendo. And of course, there's also discussion about their next Nintendo system and the Switch 2 and all of that. So it's all pretty interesting stuff, and I do want to talk about it with you guys and give you guys my thoughts. Alright, so here we are on Nintendo's official website where we can see they have their financial data, and it's now been updated as of March 31st, 2023. And if we scroll down here, we can see exactly how the Nintendo Switch has been doing. So it's actually sold over 125 million units. So there's over 125 million Nintendo Switches that have been sold around the world. The software has actually gone above 1 billion now. So there's basically over 1 billion games that have been sold for the Switch, which is just really crazy to think about, especially if you compare it here to the 3DS, and especially down here with the Wii U, you can see how much the Nintendo Switch has been more successful than both of these systems. And that's really kind of crazy, but the thing is that these numbers are actually not what Nintendo has been expecting to reach by this point, and they're actually a little bit kind of under what they would have thought. So that's kind of the more interesting stuff that people have been discussing, where if we take a look right here, like we can see NBC is reporting the Nintendo Switch sales plunged 22% and the gaming giant expects further decline. So these numbers are actually not what Nintendo has been hoping for by this point. And I mean, even like Nintendo's big president, Mr. Shintaro Furukawa now, it basically says right here, Furukawa admits that the Nintendo Holiday 2022 sales were disappointing and the Switch sales are slowing quicker than expected. So there it is. I mean, that's like the one thing that people were talking about, where of course there was a lot of cool stuff that came out last year, but ever since then, it seems like that the Nintendo Switch now definitely started kind of losing a little bit of momentum, and it's not really going as fastly as it was selling before, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the system has been out for so long now, and especially by saying like the holiday 2022 sales were disappointing, that's a shocker, because last year we of course had a brand new generation of Pokemon which came out, and of course you would have thought like that would have had systems flying off the shelves, but even with that, it seems like the holiday sales were still not as good as Nintendo had hoped for. So you can definitely see here that now the Nintendo Switch is kind of starting to get towards the end of its life here, where not really a lot of people are buying the system, and it makes a lot of sense because the system has been out for so long. I mean, it came out in 2017, we're in 2023 now, and we're kind of at a point now where pretty much anybody who wants a Nintendo Switch kind of already has one. Like, I feel like there's already a game that has come out that made you buy a Nintendo Switch as soon as you saw it. Like, I think for a lot of people, it was Super Smash Bros. When that came out in 2018, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate got announced, there was millions of people who went out and bought a Nintendo Switch immediately to play that game and have that on the Nintendo Switch. Maybe you got it for Super Mario Odyssey, which came out in 2017. There was still other stuff that came out too, like Pokemon Sword and Shield. Maybe you got it for that. A whole new generation of Pokemon. Those are always big system sellers. Maybe you got it for Animal Crossing, which came out in 2020. So all of these are definitely big system selling games, and they have already released. So pretty much if anybody's out there who wants a Nintendo Switch, I feel like they've already kind of had the opportunity to get one now. So there really isn't that many people out there who are like dying to get a Nintendo Switch right now and still haven't gotten one. And this is all really crazy if you take a look right here, where it says here that the Nintendo president is actually expecting another 15 million forecast for this fiscal year, and he's even saying that it's a bit of a stretch. So this is crazy because it says right here, Nintendo has set the forecast for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024 at 15 million. Now, this is just really kind of crazy for me to think about, because basically what they're saying here is Nintendo is expecting to sell another 15 million Nintendo Switches by the end of March 31st, 2024 next year. And I mean, that's the thing, is like 15 million is a lot of systems. That's a whole big amount of systems that they still expect to sell. And the thing is, like, I just feel like that's a really high number, and there isn't really that many games that are coming out now that would convince people to go out and buy a Nintendo Switch immediately, right? Like, I feel like the biggest system selling games have already kind of released now for the Nintendo Switch. And like the biggest one, of course, coming out is the one that's coming out in just a few days from the time that I upload this video, and that is the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. that is definitely going to be Nintendo's biggest game that's going to be coming out this year, and it's definitely going to be like their kind of last heavy hitter game, it seems like, for this Nintendo system. Thing with Tears of the Kingdom is I feel like everybody who is excited for Tears of the Kingdom and can't wait to get it already has a Nintendo Switch. Like, I feel like there isn't really that many people who are so excited to play Tears of the Kingdom that they're going out and buying a Switch for it too. Like, I'm sure that group still exists, but it's definitely not close to 15 million. I'm sure like Tears of the Kingdom definitely isn't going to get 15 million more people to go out and buy a Switch. Especially because I feel like a lot of people would need to play Breath of the Wild first, and that's already a game that's been out for a while now, and people already have bought a Switch for it and have played it. So I feel like most people who are excited for Tears of the Kingdom already have a Switch with Breath of the Wild, and they've already kind of played all of that. So it makes you kind of wonder now, is there going to be other games? That's also another big thing, is like, we don't know what other games are coming out for the Nintendo Switch after basically Pikmin 4, which comes out in July. And after that, we don't know anything else that's going to be coming out this year in terms of the Nintendo Switch. So people are wondering, like, is there still going to be like another big heavy hitter type of game that they're going to have, which could maybe convince more people to go out and buy a Nintendo Switch? Like, are they hiding potentially a brand new Mario game, like a big 3D Mario game? Because that's also been a long time since we've had the last 3D Mario game, which was of course Super Mario Odyssey way back in 2017. So could they have another big Mario game ready for the Switch, which could be like their big holiday game this year? Or are they just going to really rely on Zelda to carry them throughout the entire rest of 2023? That's what's going to be interesting to see, because I feel like after Pikmin 4, we really kind of just have DLC in terms of the Nintendo Switch this year. Like, we know that there's of course going to be that Splatoon 3 DLC, which is still coming out with Side Order, and like I think Marina and Pearl are going to be inside of that. And then I think we also have, of course, like the Pokemon DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which is going to be coming out too. But besides that, we don't really have many games. So, I mean, he is saying here that it is a bit of a stretch. Like, he even knows that, yeah, that's a pretty big number to really kind of forecast for the end of March 31st, 2024. Can they do it? I definitely don't think that it's impossible, but I do think that it is going to be difficult. And this all gets even more interesting when it says here, and there's no new or upgraded hardware factored into this forecast. So basically, they're not talking about a new system that they're hiding that they're going to announce later this year, and that's why they're expecting 15 million more Switches to be sold. No, they're basically saying just this OLED right here, the Switch Lite, and the normal Nintendo Switch, just those systems, they're expecting to sell another 15 million in total by the end of March 31st, 2024. And it just seems really difficult, man. So, of course, with that now, it also basically indirectly confirms now that there isn't going to be any new or upgraded hardware coming by the end of March 31st, 2024. So, if anybody was still kind of thinking that there was going to be like a Switch 2 that was going to be coming out this holiday, or Nintendo was planning to have like a new system coming out in like January of next year, it looks like that is basically all deconfirmed now, and it's not going to happen. But, of course, they did say that it's going to be up until March 31st, 2024. That definitely still means that after that, a new system could definitely still come out, and that is definitely seeming like what the big rumor is, where a lot of people are talking now that there is going to be a new system that is going to be coming out in the later half of 2024, where if we take a look at this article right here from Nikkei Asia, it seems like they're talking about here Nintendo expects Switch sales to slow further into this year. But the very interesting thing is at the very end right here, they're basically talking about where it says here, to offset the Switch's decline and get back on the growth track, many are calling on the company to introduce a new console. And then they said here, one is rumored to be out next year. Development seems to be progressing well, a source close to Nintendo told Nikkei Asia. But the product launch won't happen before next spring at the earliest. So they're basically saying here that according to like what they've heard, there is development that is happening for a new Nintendo console, the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Switch, whatever they call it, the Super Switch or anything like that. But they're basically saying that the product launch won't happen before next spring at the earliest. So if you were thinking that they were going to do something similar like what they did with the current Nintendo Switch, where it was going to be coming out in early March of next year, it seems like that's not going to be what's going to happen. So it seems like now that the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever they're calling their next system could be more of like a summer thing that could happen next year, or maybe it's going to be like their fall or holiday thing, where it seems like even kind of early into 2024, in the first half of 2024, we could even not really have any more big games. It's just going to be kind of slow in terms of like what games are going to be coming out for the Switch. And then towards the end of the year, that's when they're really going to start kind of hyping up their next system, and we're going to see big games coming out for that. And so it's really just interesting that even the Nintendo president, the big man himself, is saying that the Nintendo Switch sales are starting to slow down and they're not really being as fast as they would expect to be around this time. So it's kind of interesting to see what their plan is going to be moving forward. I've seen some people actually speculating that maybe Nintendo is planning on doing like a price cut right before the holiday time this year, where maybe Nintendo Switches are now going to become like $250 or $220. And because of that, that might be the one thing that convinces a lot more people to go out and buy a Switch now, because it is kind of close to the end of the life. And because of that, now if they do a price cut, there's of course still a huge library of amazing Nintendo Switch games for people to play. So maybe some people just don't want to spend the $300 for a Switch, and that's why like right before the holiday time, if they make the Switch become like $200 or $220, that could be the thing that gets a lot more people to buy a Switch, and that could definitely boost them to getting more sales and maybe getting that forecast that they have for another 15 more million. I also want to talk about how it's so crazy that this situation is very similar to what happened during the Nintendo Wii's era, where if you think about it, the Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo Switch both launched with a big Zelda game that was available on the previous generation. So the Wii came out with Twilight Princess, and that was still available on the GameCube with the previous generation, and the Nintendo Switch came out with Breath of the Wild, which was available on the previous generation with the Wii U. Both of these systems with the Wii and the Switch were insanely successful, selling over 100 million units, and it seems like both of them are going to be ending their lifespan with their last huge game being a Zelda game. If you really think about it, the last big first-party game that did come out on the Nintendo Wii was Zelda Skyward Sword, which came out in 2011, and just a year later in 2012, guess what we got? That's right, the next generation Nintendo system with the Wii U. And it really seems like to me that they're doing the exact same type of approach with Tears of the Kingdom, where it seems like that's going to be like their big kind of last heavy hitter game that's going to be first party coming out for this current Nintendo Switch, and the next year in 2024, they're gonna see the launch of the next Nintendo system with the Nintendo Switch 2. And so honestly, it just makes perfect sense to me, and I'm sure Nintendo has learned their lesson with the Wii U, so they're gonna do everything they can to make the next Nintendo system just as successful as the Nintendo Switch. And so yeah, that is pretty much all the Nintendo news that is happening right now in terms of Nintendo Switch sales, what Nintendo is forecasting, and what could be in the future in terms of the Nintendo Switch 2. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button, and also subscribe to the channel as well, as I am going to be having more Nintendo videos very soon. But also comment down below and let me know what you guys think about this. How are you guys feeling about the Nintendo Switch sales starting to decline now? Do you think that Nintendo is planning to have a new system that's going to be coming out next year? What do you think that they're going to be doing for the rest of this year? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.